Good evening, everybody. So, today we are discussing Chapter 3 of The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring, which is called Three is Company. Here's the book that I've been reading from. As you guys can see above me, I am taking part in the St. Jude charity this year, and my campaign is Roses for the Little Warriors. So, if you are interested in donating at all, swing by one of my streams between now and I think it's the end of May is when the event officially ends. And you can get the link there. I have a ton of friends who are participating as well. So, yeah. Anyways, if you guys are catching this on YouTube or you found me through one of my other videos, or this is the first time you're seeing my channel, welcome. Hi, my name's Rose. We started doing the book club with The Hobbit, and now we're on the Fellowship of the Ring. So if you aren't already subscribed, please go ahead and click that subscribe button and catch all the action in future videos. So let me go ahead and get into the VC, because this is captured in one take. So let's get in there, shall we? Let's see, what button am I looking for? Okay, here we go. Hello.
Hello.
Alrighty, so Three is Company is the chapter in which we are discussing. I felt like basic overview of my take on this chapter. Astrid, I was about to say Rose because that's my gamer version. Astrid's hot take on this chapter is I felt like A, very different from the movies. B, I'd say a little slow and kind of a filler chapter. Those are like my three like big hot takes from this chapter. Not necessarily a bad thing, just their takes from this chapter. Anybody else have any like overarching thoughts before we get into the nitty-gritty? Any other hot takes, or are we in agreement?
I think it's a lot, like there's a lot of development there for the characters. Like you get to learn a lot about like what Sam understands the Shire to be, and like what Frodo finally at 50 years old saw what the Shire became for him. It was the only moment in the book that it mentions that Frodo didn't want to leave something that he grew so fond of, or wrote it down.
Oh, interesting.
I have the quote.
Sorry if you guys hear like
said,
wind noises in the background. I have my fan on because my apartment is so hot right now.
She said, Frodo finally felt that Bag End was more desirable as a residence now as it ever felt to him. He was torn to leave a place that he finally felt he could stay forever. So I was like, I added a little like comment next to it. I was like, that's kind of like what life is. And a lot for like most people in like transition stages, they get to a point where it's like something big's about to happen, but they just finally got used to doing what they were doing.
I can definitely relate to that, being somebody who just moved back in August. Like and moved 3 states away, so I completely get that. And yeah, I would agree that this is like a developmental chapter.
For sure.
It was definitely just like, I think when I say it was slow, it was kind of just we touched on this a little bit last week for those that watched or were in last week's discussion, is that in the movie, we do this a lot, Axel will like relate it to the movie. Sure. But in the movie, you know, it's like Gandalf comes back. He shows Frodo that the ring is the ring. And then it's like, get out the door, get out the door, get out the door. Like, it's very like rapid, immediate, like, just get on the road immediately, you know, kind of thing. Whereas it's like, it was in like this first like page or two of the chapter where he's like, I plan on leaving in like a couple months in the fall, like at my 50th birthday. Like and he's like, we'll celebrate one more birthday before we go, and then we'll get on the road. And I'm like, man, evil does not wait for your birthday. Like,
well, Gandalf told him to not rush it. He said,
yeah, I know.
The first line of the chapter is, you ought to leave, you ought to go quietly, and you ought to do it soon. And then they had a whole conversation about how he couldn't just up and leave. Like, he had to make it look. He sold Bag End, he sold all the estate, and then he bought another house. Yeah. On that, I forgot what that creek's called, something creek. And then so he had to like make it look like he could, like there'd be like no sign of him just disappearing. Because the day
Right.
he left, there was already riders in the Shire,
Right.
and they were already asking about him. And if he had just been like disappeared like months ago, then they wouldn't have them wasting time looking in the Shire. It's kind of a decoy if you think about it.
Oh, interesting. I hadn't thought of it that way. But yeah, just very different from the movie, because even in the movie, yeah, like the riders are in the Shire, but it's like, you know, the way that it's portrayed is that it's like, you know, oh, he found Gollum, Smeagol, you know, whatever. He gave up that, you know, he told, you know, the enemy that, like, you know, Shire and Baggins and blah blah blah, right? And then it's like, you know, the same in like a couple frames after, when like Frodo's on his way, or like there's that whole scene where like the rider comes up to the house of the character in the movie, and that, you know, he's like, you know, he tells him and he like tells him where to go and everything. It's like very quick.
Yeah, that's all coming.
Is that officially Farmer Maggot in the movie?
Yeah,
I was always in my head. It was.
It is.
Well, I didn't realize that, because I know Farmer Maggot's a lot more fighty.
Yeah, I do wish that they would have put that in the movie, because Farmer Maggot's very much like fuck off, and I love it.
They didn't put the relationship that they had in there. Like Peregrine knew him.
Huh.
So in the book, you'll get there, and I think that's the next chapter.
Well, and that was something that was also interesting to me, is like, you look at, you know, chapter 4's title, A Shortcut to Mushrooms, and yet in this chapter, at least, again, first time reader here making this comment, but in this chapter, you know, they have the scenes where is it Pippin that's with them from the get-go? Yeah, Pippin and Sam and Frodo, like, that, you know, they hide, or Frodo hides under a tree, you know, and the rider goes by, which is in the movie, in the scene about the mushrooms.
Right.
And so it's like, like when I read that, I was like, wow, we are progressing rapidly, you know, a little bit, like from the standpoint of, if I think about the movie, you know, and then also like the whole scene with the elves at the end, and I'm skipping way ahead to the end, but it's like the whole scene with the elves, again, if I'm relating it to the movie, for better for worse, like the scene with the elves, at least when the elves are like walking by, is just Sam and Frodo. And it's like very early on in their journey, which, when we learned a little bit more from the beginning of this book, is that like elves travel by the Shire all the time. Which, you know, in the movie, up until that point, wasn't really conveyed. Whereas like, yeah, like, I don't know, it was just like, interesting, you know, like, just like, it was just interesting how in this chapter 3, there were some scenes from different parts of the movies that, again, first time reader, felt like, wait a minute, we're pulling from different things, and yet the next chapter is that scene that I just referenced about the whole like hiding under the tree with the rider going by with the mushrooms and stuff. So that was just interesting.
They mixed up the timeline a bit for the movie, just for like sake of building plot.
For sure.
You'll get the whole story about where Gandalf was when Frodo finds Gandalf again. Because you got to think about, they got to be like, where were you? Like where were you at? You know? Kind of like that situation, because you're kind of reading from the perspective of Frodo. And in the extended cut as well, the passing of the elves is in there. Yeah. And
that's the scene I'm talking about, of like that.
It comes after like the farm part that you're talking about. Like they threw that in the beginning so we can get Merry back into the party, because he's not in there right now, right?
Right, but in the movie, it's just Sam and Frodo that have the elves that are in there.
Pippin's there too.
In the movie.
Oh, in the movie?
In the movie, it's just Frodo and Sam, and it's like very early on, and it's because they're like, wood elves, you know, and it's like they walk by, all ethereal.
They don't get to have like that picnic in the book that they had in the movie.
Yeah, that was complete, like that threw me off a little bit, because I was like, who are you? Like, you know, just like, you know, and again, I know book came first and blah, 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 but since the movie is all I have as my point of reference, like,
well, if the movie is your first point of reference, it's natural to use that as your bookmark, but then, or your benchmark. But the thing is with the movie also, they have less time to convey.
Yeah.
Because a book can take many more hours to read than a movie is allowed to go on.
Oh yeah. Even the extended editions.
Yeah, so I mean, it's going to take us more than 4 hours to read through The Lord of the Rings.
Oh, absolutely. It's definitely already taken me more than 4 hours to read through this because I'm trying to actually absorb it instead of like glaze. Anyways. So, yeah, so we have, you know, we're still in the Shire at the beginning. He's talking about the various, like, you know, just like milestones that he's like getting to, of just like, you know, like you said, selling his house, buying a new one. I did like this part at the beginning, not to like just stay in the first 2 pages for too long, but I did like this first part in the beginning where at first Gandalf's like, don't tell anybody where you're going. He's like, but Rivendell might not be a bad idea. He's like, Frodo's like, okay, to the east we go then. Let's go that way. You know, and it was like, well, that was easy to finally pick a direction, because Frodo even says, like, I didn't even think, like, which direction am I going to go, kind of thing.
I'm scared, dude.
Yeah.
Well, also, the one thing you'll notice is that Gandalf is very good at influencing hobbits into where they should go. It's like, hey, you know.
You think he uses magic to do it?
Like a pretty good idea. And it's just like, I don't think he uses magic. It's not like a Jedi mind trick. He's just like, all right, look, I've been around these hobbits for a long time. I'm pretty sure I know how to convince them to do so. Just subtly say something to them, and they'll be like, oh yeah, that's great. Let's do that. And if you can include lunch or, you know, tea and tobacco, they're all on board.
Yep. Let's see. Yeah, and then Frodo, you know, it's like Gandalf leaves rather abruptly after he stayed for 2 months. After, you know, like you said, Frodo's plan, it literally says plan had been finally arranged. But then Gandalf leaves abruptly. And let's see. Yeah, like, you know, he starts moving his stuff to his new house. I did like the emphasis in this chapter on the relationship between Merry, Pippin, Sam, and Frodo. Because even though in the movie you get, you know, of a hint, if you will, of like, oh yeah, like they're friends, no duh, but like the fact that, you know, they're helping him move house, they're helping him like carry his stuff to the new house, it's like, wow, like these are really solid friends, and everything.
Even Fatty too. The
yeah,
unsung hobbit.
Oh yeah, very true. Yeah, so then like we're carrying all of our stuff.
Boulder, right?
Yeah. Let's see. Trying to like see here. So then we're oh yeah, like Lobelia shows up to the house. She's like, hours at last. Oh my goodness, man, they are a piece of work. Those
my favorite line from that situation is this just one sentence that said Frodo did not offer any tea.
Or when they have their last meal, when he's like, I didn't give them any of my wine. And I was like, ooh.
Well, she's so greedy. She was at the auction and she was like trying to take stuff that she saw that was hers. Like she thought the family like owned it to her.
Yeah.
She showed up. She wanted to make sure that Frodo didn't give anything else away, and then she demanded the key.
Yeah, like, they are a piece of work.
What a pain in the ass.
Yeah, they are a piece of work.
Frodo did not offer her any tea.
And then
my favorite part's right when they're leaving. They're like, Sam, and Sam runs back with beer on his face because he was literally chugging from the beer keg tap.
Oh yeah.
Saying goodbye to his beloved barrel. That's my spirit animal.
Hell yeah.
Let's see. so
Truly a man of culture.
a man of what, Tim?
I said truly a man of culture.
He really is, man. He's so like, he's like the most well-rounded person in the whole trilogy.
Aren't there all those like, not memes and stuff, but like, you know, little things where it's kind of those like mic drop little things, you know, posts you see on like Instagram or whatever, where they're like, Sam is literally like, even though Frodo is the main character of the story, like Sam is actually like the real hero.
For sure, he is.
Where it's
he took more. He already started off on the right foot by taking the brunt of the weight of all the packs. Like that kind of guy.
Yeah. And Frodo's like, no, Sam, like you already took too much. Like we'll definitely reorganize the next time we pack everything and everything. And like, I mean, that's portrayed beautifully in the movies as well by the fact that Frodo has like his little pack and Sam's got the pots and pans and the salt and the elven rope and, you know, everything. Like he's got this huge pack.
If I remember correctly, I think even Tolkien kind of confesses at one point in his career that he looks at Sam as the true hero of the whole trilogy.
Oh wow. Yeah, I mean
100%.
I mean, yeah, I mean, again, I know we haven't gotten obviously to the Return of the King because we're only in the Fellowship of the Ring, but like, or no, I think it's at the end of Two Towers, I think, when they're leaving Osgiliath and they're like, you know, Frodo wouldn't have gotten far without Sam and stuff. It's like, yeah, I know, you'd probably be dead. Like,
for sure.
It's like you'd be dead or Gollum would have the ring and he'd still be alive and both of you'd be dead. You know, it's just like Sam literally saved your life repeatedly, but also like stood fast against his own like fears and dangers with like various things to go rescue Frodo. It's like, dude, like you're amazing.
I'm sorry to keep going
good.
on that.
You're good.
If I'm remembering correctly, Tolkien he kind of set that up because Sam is supposed to be kind of what was called in World War I a Batman, which is like the main assistant to an officer.
Okay.
So Tolkien really wanted to display how vital of a role somebody like Sam is in any hero's, you know, role or any leading position, and just how important that is to have somebody like that.
It is. Yeah.
Well, and as we talked about in The Hobbit, and Yoren brought up several times, and I think others did too, Tim probably, and others brought up, is that like obviously Tolkien related a lot of this to his experiences in the war, so it's like that's not surprising at all that he would continue that into that kind of symbolism, for lack of a better word, in this moment. But yeah, like, yeah, I loved everything we talked about in The Hobbit. Like, I learned so much from you guys in those discussions. Yeah, so then to try and, because we're already like a bit in here and only a bit into the chapter, but yeah, so then it's like, you know, we got the packs, we're saying goodbye. Let's see. Yep, here's the line about Sam having the heaviest packs. Yeah, and then, you know, the like a lot of the somber notes of like, I wonder if I shall ever look down into that valley again, because as said in previous parts of the chapter, he was like, I don't know where I'm going, really. I don't know when I'm gonna return. Like, this is just kind of like, I'm leaving. Okay, I'm leaving. It
immediately like reflects that pivotal moment when he, like a little bit forward after they took their first nap and like the fox sees them. They have that moment where Frodo's standing as far as he's ever stood, and he like mumbles under his breath, "The road goes on forever."
Yeah.
He said he was looking at a land he had never seen before, a new horizon. And he started singing that little that little rhyme.
Yep. Yep.
The one that Pippin asked was written by Bilbo or not.
Mm.
It's another like one of those such is life quotes. Really, the whole phrase. I wrote it down. I wrote, "Makes road goes on forever, goes on and on from the door where it began.
Where it began.
Yeah, now far ahead the road is gone, and I must follow if I can, pursuing it with weary feet until it joins some larger way, where many paths and errands meet, and whither then I cannot say." So it's like one of those, you reach a transition stage in your life, and you've gone as far as you can go, but here's like a stream of other people's lives and like experiences that land in front of you, like kind of like how I like met you guys, really. Like just opportunity just like kind of landed at my feet, and I said, "Fuck yeah, let's go."
Yep.
Sorry.
Oh, you're good. You're good.
Heck yeah, let's go.
Hey, you said we couldn't do that when talking about Tolkien. There you go.
Yeah.
No, you're good. You're good. You're good.
I mean, like, you stand there, you wonder, like, all of our like responsibilities widen a little bit, and you blend your path with someone else, and you're just like wondering, like, what's next? You just gotta like keep moving forward down the road that connects every path to every path.
Oh, absolutely. And that was, I think, really beautifully displayed, like this little kind of moment in the movie. But I mean, it was just Sam and Frodo, but it was like Sam like stops and is like, if I take one more step, I'll be the farthest from home I've ever been. And it's like, that's like I feel like a very relatable thing, like both this scene and in the movie and in the book right here that you were just talking about. Because like so many people just stay at home or stay where is comfortable. And then like the moment that, some kind of reasoning, whether it's going away for school, moving out of the house, new job opportunity, military, fill in the blank with any example of reasons to leave
Traveling
your
across the country to go fight a bunch of people for,
yeah. Also
an
for
exorbitant amount of money.
yeah, also true. But it's like any of those experiences where you're just kind of like, well, I'm kind of taking a little bit of a leap of faith here about going to this completely unknown. But it's like, yeah, but it's you're just gonna, you got to do it. Otherwise, where are you gonna go, kind of thing. And who are you gonna meet, and stuff like that. Like the opportunity is there, but there's also that kind of undertone of like nerves and fear of like, well, what if, like, I've never left home, I've never been this far away, what am I gonna do, like, kind of thing. So anyways, I liked the little homages to like Bilbo with Mirkwood and Lonely Mountain and stuff like that. Like, just nice to kind of go back to that a little bit, just even in some little references. Let's see. Yeah, like I know we said there's a different timeline in the movie, but like it may not matter much, he said apologetically, but I would rather not be seen on the road by anyone. And then that's when they hide, and then we see, we hear the first reference of like, or not the first reference. No, not the first reference. But around the corner came a black horse, blah, blah, blah. And then it's like this description of, the ring wraith is like, even though it's like it's detailed, but it's like there's still like such a creepy feeling about it. Like, I would not want to run into this person, where it's like, no hobbit pony, but a full-size horse, and on it sat a large man who seemed to crouch in the saddle, wrapped in a great black cloak and hood, so that only his boots in the high stirrups showed below. His face was shadowed and invisible. When it reached the tree and was level with Frodo, the horse stopped. The riding figure sat quite still with its head bowed, as if listening. From inside the hood came a noise as if someone sniffing to catch an elusive scent. The head turned from side to side of the road. And it's like, that just sounds so ominous. And if you think of the whimsy of Hobbiton, of like, pastel colors and earth tones and like joy and tending to our flowers and shrubbery, and stuff. And then there's this all black clad figure. And it's
good feeling gone.
Huh?
And good feeling gone.
Exactly. Like all of the childish whimsy that we had in the Hobbit book, gone, disappeared, disintegrated instantaneously. And this, like, the reference to like sniffing was also something that I was like, huh. And we've talked about this before, that Tolkien is extremely deliberate with what words he uses, and like, you know, it's like there's a reason that he described it like this figure is like smelling out what he's looking for. And I would say that even in the movie they portrayed that, and I'm picturing that scene, like that mushroom scene. That's the scene I'm kind of relating it to, is that he does kind of have, he has that like sniffing noise and everything. And it's like, huh, like
You can almost like imagine it looking like a snake in a way, like reaching its head out and like sniffing the air, like in a
yep.
real like twisty motion. I imagine like if we could see under the robes, we know what they look like based on the movies, but like seeing some like skeleton king underneath the robes, it'd be like, and then like it says he's going side to side from the road to one side of the road, like
Yep.
those big exaggerated movements. Like I just imagine like very snake-like.
Yep.
Very inhuman in its motions.
Yes.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Well, and it's like humans don't really use their sense of smell to locate people or things.
Yeah.
Like unless it's food. But like we don't really use our nose to seek
Locate.
things. Yeah, like we
Yeah.
don't.
Unless you're looking for the Hearthguard camp.
Hey, what are you trying to say? Well, that was something that, like, sorry to derail for 2 seconds. Like, that's something when I was in classes with my dog, like, I did nose work stuff with my dog. And they're like, dogs actually, like, you know, they seek with their nose first. Like, they actually don't look with their eyes when they are, like, looking for something. Because something could be smack dab in front of their face. But if they don't, like, register that it's there, it's, like, not invisible to them, but they just don't pay it as much mind. And I started noticing that with Danny sometimes, is that she would like look for something or be, you know, looking for something, and it's like she's not looking with it with her eyes, she's using like her other more powerful senses first.
Yeah.
And
It's why
so
they can be startled easier.
oh
or
yeah,
fairly easily, because they're not looking.
Yeah.
And so they're smelling, and they've already registered the smell. So if something moves too close, too fast, that's what happens.
yep, absolutely. But yeah, it's like, but we don't do that. Like we use our eyes to observe and take in a situation. So again, it's like the fact, like you said, very inhuman, is like the fact that he deliberately said that he's sniffing, you know, the ring wraith is sniffing. It's like, that's not very human. Humans don't do that.
I think you said something like snuffling too. Like it was
yeah,
like made me imagine like a
yeah,
sound, like how dogs, when they find the scent, they like get real quick with it.
yeah, yep,
They call attention to it again too with Sam on, I mean, page 95 for me, where he says, "What about the smelling, sir?" And smelling's even in italics.
Mhm.
oh yeah, yours is, you're way ahead on page numbers than for me. 95 isn't even in chapter 4. Actually, let me
Yeah, I
see.
got a smaller book.
Yeah, 90, well actually no, 95 is at the very end, literally the last page of chapter 5 for me, or 4 for me.
And then when they were talking to the elves, Pippin's like, what about the Black Riders?" Maybe that's when was that when he brings it up?
No, it's right after Sam tells the story about the gaffer, like talking to him about the ring wraith coming to visit.
Gotcha.
Oh, that's right. Oh yeah. For me, it's at the top of chapter 75, or top of chapter. Oh my gosh, page 75. What about the smelling, sir? Said Sam, and the gaffer said he was a black chap. I wish I had waited for Gandalf, Frodo muttered, but perhaps it would only have made matters worse.
Definitely.
Yeah. And yeah, and I think that's a good thing to note as well, is the fact that the gaffer described him, you know, as the, like, you know, and we know that it's this like shrouded in black figure based on the interaction that they just had on the previous like 2 pages or whatever. But the fact that Gaffer called out like the color in which this figure is shrouded in, trying to not make it sound really bad out of context, but like but it's like, again, I think that goes back to the massive contrast to what is seen in Hobbiton, and the fact that you go from, and Axel, we talked about this a ton in The Hobbit, is that like The Hobbit being written for children had like a very much of a whimsy to it, and like hobbits are very whimsical and very childlike and very, you know, fun and just happy and like, you know, not a negative thing in the world kind of thing. And so then again, for this shrouded in black figure to be in Hobbiton, it's like that is a very, very distinguishable like contrast. And again, it's like Tolkien points it out, you know, and it's like, I'm learning more and more and more and more and more and seeing more and more evidence that yes, Tolkien is an insanely like particular with his wording and descriptive author, which I love. It's awesome because you know that his words are intentional. No,
and the juxtaposition of such a fearful looking character in such a comfortable land and world is what makes it so terrifying.
Yes.
I mean, if you're a fan of horror movies, that's why, like in Halloween, just the shape of Michael Myers in the town, just standing there, is terrifying because he doesn't have to do anything because he's just so out of place. You have a boring, mundane, like suburban life, and then just the monster. That's it.
Yep.
You don't need him to do anything to be scary.
Yep.
And it's the same thing with the ring wraiths. Like they exist in a place where they're not supposed to be, and it makes them more frightening.
Yeah, going along your horror story or horror movie, like references, like you don't even have to see them too, because that's what a lot of the old horror movies would do. They just show you like a shoulder of a monster in the shadow, and you'd be terrified of what your imagine creates.
Some of the best times you'll have with that sort of thing are not seeing it, and that's why, you know, not telling you what you see of the ring wraith. He's just shrouded in black, and you don't see his face. You only see his boots.
Yeah, your imagination gets to paint it.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, and even in the movie, the way that at what is it, Weathertop, when he puts on the ring and actually does see the ring wraiths, it's like even those are still terrifying if you think about, like, you know, it's like these skeletal figures with their old crowns from when they were, you know, kings, and then just like bony fingers, and then that very like wispy clothing that we've kind of inherently related to like ghosts or like these like very like woo, you know, kind of figures. And it's like they're pretty terrifying. Like, you know, it's like they have no eyes, they're just reaching out for the ring, you know. It's like, even though yes, Peter Jackson like shows you exactly what is underneath, it's like even still, like that's what, you know, their like true current form is or whatever. But like both versions are equally terrifying. So
I'm pretty sure too they're bound to the cloth. Like if they obviously they aren't the cloth, but their spirit is kind of wrapped up in it. So if it gets dispersed, like we'll see later, and like in the movie with the river, it takes them a while to reform back to in that shape.
Which also kind of goes, you know, with the whole idea of like, you know, they used to be men, like, you know, they used to be kings of men, and that whole kind of like they are almost like a ghost. And again, that just leans into just old, you know, scary stories of ghost stories and stuff like that. And then that's a good, I feel like there's another reference of that kind of like you know, the clothing they wear, or this whatever, like something like that's like what's keeping them together in a humanoid form. I feel like there's got to be other you know, references of that type of magic, if you will, for lack of a better word, in other movies. But
Oh, gotcha.
well, or other, like, I feel like that's been seen before. Now that you've said that, like, I feel like there's other, I mean, it's
Obi-Wan Kenobi did it.
okay.
Kind of.
Yeah. I don't know, but I feel like there's definitely another reference of that kind of thing where it's like, yeah, you have this spirit-esque enemy, and the only way that it takes air quote physical form is because it's like inside something. It doesn't matter. That's a rabbit hole we don't have to go down.
He did
Anyways,
in Diablo with King Leoric. He was like a skeleton king, and his crown kept him in the form of the king.
oh, I haven't actually played Diablo, but that's a good one-to-one. Anywho, without going down that rabbit hole further, let's see. Yeah, so then we have like another song here.
Is that the walking song?
I believe so, yes. Yeah, walking song. Though not, of course, without any mention of supper and bed. Let's see, then it's
In
like
typical Hobbit fashion.
Yep.
oh, of course, as we got through the entirety of The Hobbit, where, you know, Bilbo every other word was muttering about home and food and his bed. No, of course they would never reference those. No. Let's see. Yep, then we have the elves. So then now we have this whole interaction that let's see. We have singing, which again we saw in The Hobbit that they like to do. Here was something that I had a question, probably for Tim's know-how, but of course the floor is open to anybody. In this song that the elves are singing, who is Gilthamil? Gilthamil? I'm butchering that.
That's definitely a Tim question.
Gilthaniel? Gilthoniel. And then Elbereth.
Just a moment, and I will actually see if I can't cross-reference that for you.
Nice. Because I was like, this has got to be, like, context clues wise, I'm assuming it's some kind of, like, person in their histories or person in their, you know, royal lineage or something. Because they talk about, like, oh, queen beyond the western seas.
Oh, that's the Queen of the Stars. Verda. Elbereth, right? Is that what you said?
Yeah, well, there's Elbereth,
it's like,
and then
she has different names.
Oh,
It's
okay.
It's just different names for her. Like how kind of like how Strider, Aragorn.
Oh,
has,
which
like,
we've talked
like
about.
4 different names. He's got like 4 names.
It's Varda.
Yeah, Verda's the Queen of the Stars or something.
Yeah,
From,
the
if you read
Star
the Silmarillion,
We're not there
which
yet.
yeah, well, that's gonna be it.
We plan on reading that later.
We'll
So
get
that's
there.
gonna be like lecture more than a, than a
Hey,
book
hey,
club.
hey, it's okay.
It's like reading an encyclopedia. But yeah, she's one of the, what is it, like 7 of them or 9 of them or something. The
I can't remember the number.
they're like the Kenyan names or whatever.
Yeah.
Interesting.
They're still like the
Was it Kenya or
Valar.
Quenya?
Quenya, I don't know. I read it, so I just pronounced it how I thought. But like the Valar, the Queen of the Valar. That's the group name, the Valar.
Yeah.
That's the Silmarillion. That opens up a whole can of what's going on.
Oh, I know. We've had tons of times where like Tim or Calder or others will like reference the Silmarillion. When Tag was coming to these, or Yoren, it was like okay, I'm just gonna nod along and be like, that sounds really cool. We'll get there when we get there. You know, like where I'm like, yes, I love all these facts because obviously I don't know them, but I'm also like, now I just want to get there, but we're not there yet. One step at a time. One step at a time. Anyways, so.
Yeah, so that's what they're referencing in the song.
Okay.
Queen of the Stars.
That's who I was kind of like, again, like context clues. I was like, it's gotta be somebody that's like, you know, something of that nature, since it's like thy starlight on the western seas, you know, queen beyond the western. I was like, this has to be some kind of like pivotal character in that kind of way. But I was like, I'm just curious, who is this person? I don't know. Anyways, this whole elves scene was very interesting.
With Gilder.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, because they're high elves. And he also made a comment in here. Sorry for that little like voice crack there. He made a comment where was it? Hold on. Oh yeah. We are exiles, and most of our kindred have long ago departed, and we too are now only tarrying here a while ere we return over the great sea. Exiles? Question mark? Like, obviously I know what the word means, but like, what?
That comes from the Silmarillion too. It's like more of their history.
That's another big thing.
Oh, okay. So is it because of?
It has to do with background of the elves, yeah.
Okay, so is it because of their like? Is it the high elves specifically, or is it this Gildor character specifically?
It's like the high elves specifically, but all elves kind of, because like those trees of like light, the gold trees, like the magic trees. Like the last one was at the top of the mountain where the Balrog was, and the Balrog finally just like found out how to tear it down. So like once their last tree died, they had like no purpose to be in Middle Earth, so they went back over to over the West Sea, the Great Sea. That's kind of, if you watch the Rings of Power, that's like where they were all going and where Galadriel was gonna go, but she decided to come back.
Okay. So then
and they ran into Sauron in the sea.
Great. So then
let's not discuss that.
So then by him saying we're exiles, like, are they actually exiled from the high elves, or are they just
all of them are?
So a lot of that also stems more from the Silmarillion because of some of the issues of at one point there's kind of like an elven civil war.
Okay. Well, that was more of a, we don't need to go down the deep dive, but I was like, that's very interesting that the word exiles is used when, it's like, usually there's a very negative connotation to the word exiles, especially when you're talking about like, we are exiled from our like home group of people. Like, it almost kind of is akin to like, you're banished kind of thing. So it's like, well, what are they exiled for?
They exiled themselves, right?
Some of them, yeah, but some of them it's also like, hey, you got to stay here because you're trouble.
Huh,
I think
interesting.
Like, I think that they did it because like they weren't allowed to fight. They weren't allowed to start a war, and then they exiled themselves to start that war. Something about that. I can't remember. Last time I read the Silmarillion was 2.5 years ago, and like I said, it's like reading an encyclopedia. Like I would have rather have done calculus. I forced myself to sit through it though, but I didn't retain anything.
Oh, clearly you've obviously retained nothing. Kidding. Sarcasm.
Yeah, when you read it, you'll see it's like it's a lot.
I know. I keep hearing about it. Yeah, I did like the throughout this whole like chunk is that like, they know who the elves know who Bilbo is, and excuse me, I'm sorry. And let's see, they ask, like, can we accompany you, and they're like, and then they have the whole like, wait, those are what's like tracking you? Yeah, you can stick with us for a little bit. Like, yeah, just stay with us kind of thing. And let's see.
This is also where it's not really spoken of, but this is where Frodo gets the same nickname as Aragorn.
Wait, really?
Yeah, Elendil. They call him Elf Friend in Elvish, but they write it in English, but he gets dubbed by Gildor Elf Friend, which is Elendil, which is the same thing that like the elves at Rivendell call Aragorn.
Huh. I did not
So they
pick
never
up
talk
on that.
about it, but they shared the same name through the whole journey.
Huh. I did not pick up on that. This is why I like having these discussions. Let's see. Yeah, this whole end bit for me was kind of like, I thought it was interesting, but I wasn't like, I don't know how to say it without it being like really blunt, but it's like I just felt like it was just kind of like meh on the way of like progression of time. I mean, I can see why it was important, but
Very fluffy.
yeah, yes, exactly. Like this is kind of like the big part for me that was like, this felt very fluff, like very like, okay, this was a fluff chapter or like a filler episode if we're talking about like, you know, if this was like a TV show. It's like this felt very much like a fluff or filler episode versus like this was real, like wow, like so much happened. It's like, yeah, a lot happened and blah blah blah, but like I don't know, this whole part just kind of felt very like, I don't know, like we didn't have it in the movies, and I don't really feel like we missed anything by not having it, though that fact you just brought up, Axel, like yeah, that would have been cool to like, you know necessarily, because that is a interesting thing. One thing I will say about this end little bit, and we can wrap up here soon, but this end little bit was that, you know, Gildor kept like kind of like tiptoeing around the answer of who the Black Riders were.
That's so annoying.
Yeah, it is annoying. I agree. But after what we've just been talking about, it kind of continues to go on. There was a line. Where was it? Hold on. Oh yeah, he's like, I cannot imagine, or Frodo says, I cannot imagine what information could be more terrifying than your hints and warnings. And I knew that danger lay ahead, of course, but I did not expect to meet it in our own shire. Can a hobbit walk from the water to the river in peace? And then, like, I thought that was really interesting because, again, we've been talking about that several times tonight of, like, the fear of the unknown, or like you said, in old horror movies, like, they'd only show you part of the monster. And it's like, well, that's almost emphasized here as well of, like, well, you've hinted at what they are, but you haven't actually told me, which is just as terrifying, if not more terrifying. So like, what could possibly be worse, kind of thing. And then there was also another line. Let's see. There was.
Go to the elves for counsel one.
No, there was like a kind of. Oh, well, it's like literally like. Well, it's the second to last paragraph, but it's like, courage is found in unlikely places. Be of good hope. And it's like, that's just like a great line, because like I feel like that's just something that all of us can live by, is like, you know, you can find courage in so many different things and, you know, hold to that, and it's like really cool.
If someone would have like re-edited the trailer for Fellowship of the Rings as Sam as the lead character, that would be the line that you hear before a montage starts.
Yep.
Definitely.
Yep. And then, yeah, it was just like this whole idea, again, continuing to kind of build on the concept of these ring wraiths being like this, like, well, what are they? What actually are they? Who are they? You know, it's just very interesting. And then, let's see, where was it as well? Like, yeah, like and then like kind of going back to that like life parallel is this line that Gildor says is right after that whole like can't imagine the information could be more terrifying. Is like, but it is not your own shire, said Gildor. Others dwelt here before hobbits were, and others will dwell here again when hobbits are no more. The wide world is all about you. You can fence yourself in, but you cannot forever fence it out.
Yeah, I had those highlighted too. Those are good lines.
Yeah. That's just like a, kind of a good lifeline, as well as like you can close yourself off from the world, but that doesn't mean the world isn't still happening around you, and it's still like coming in various ways.
Well, I might be reaching at straws here, but maybe it makes me think that Three's Company's not really about Sam, Pippin, and Frodo. It's more like Frodo, the ring, and like the fear of like what's about to happen and not knowing. Like a shadow, like a shadowy wraith figure looming over your shoulder.
I mean, that's entirely possible. Although Tolkien famously did reject allegory. He didn't like using it. But even if somebody's not fond of allegory, they could still put it into their work without intending it.
Right.
Well,
Also, just like I said, reaching at straws. It could just be how I'm just perceiving something.
Yeah.
Which I think is, I mean, Caldor, you literally said something last week too that was kind of another. You had something last week that was like a bit of a stretch, like a air quote stretch, but you were like, there was some.
Yeah. The week before, when it was talking about how Frodo's parents passed away, and I always believed that Smeagol had something to do with Frodo's parents' death because it was on the water. It was really suspicious. They drowned, and Smeagol's known to be really handy in the water.
Yeah. So it's like, I think that's part of the fun of this, is getting to hear people's like interpretation of things and how they're.
Oh, thank God, that's what you meant by the fun of it. Just like, what? Parent murder?
No, yes.
Patricide.
No. I'm talking about like the book club in general is like the fun of it is getting to hear people's like how they read the chapters and how they read the text, and then it's like Axel, I hadn't thought of it that way, but it's the only real reference to the whole like Three is Company thing is the title of the chapter, and then like we've got Pippin, Frodo, and Sam, so you're like, oh duh, it's the three of them. But
doesn't Three's Company mean like it's too many cooks in the kitchen kind of thing? Like Three's Company is like, this is too much. Like I was expecting a nice calm evening, but Three's Company, you're kind of like cramping the style, like you're having company over to your house.
Company, three is a crowd.
Oh, okay, yeah, there we go. That's where I got it from, that feeling, because that's why I didn't understand like how I'm supposed to like associate a negative third person or a third entity in the room if it's Sam, Frodo, and Pippin. Like,
sure,
there's no sense of like someone's not allowed or someone's not welcome.
Sure.
Since the full 9 is also called the company or the fellowship, it could just be like the 3 is the start of the company.
Very true. Yeah.
Well, and they've had because
they have indeed.
Have they had 3 encounters with it? They had 2 on the road and 1 in the Shire, right?
They had
That's
2.
true.
But they didn't have the one in the Shire. That was the gaffer. That was like hearsay in the morning, because they arrived on the 23rd of September, the morning before the sunrise, and the hobbits left and encountered it for the first time at night on the road. So they saw it twice. And I've always thought I don't think that they saw the Wraith twice. I think that they might have saw the Wraith once and then saw Strider once. Because we do find out that Strider's been following them. I've always thought that, like, they never say if it was Strider, but I always thought it was Ringwraith and Strider in 2 different situations. Because why would the Ringwraith like have to double back on something that he was chasing? Like, why would he come back down that same road if he turned around the first time? I don't know.
Samwise Gamgee's dad spooked one of the wraiths, and then Samwise like kind of like threw it off, or Frodo actually threw it off, like, oh, I wish I asked who he was talking to.
Yeah, he did. He saw him in the morning. That was the first encounter in the Shire with the Hobbit, was
Yeah.
Was the gaffer. Sam's dead.
Yeah. Yeah, that was my stretch comment for the evening. It was like, wait a minute. But no, I like that idea of like Frodo in the ring and the ring wraith or just a looming
Yeah.
figure or entity. So, but that's the fun of this is like getting to hear people's different like little like, well, what about this? Interpretations and ways of reading it. Like I think it's really really cool. And like I think that's like the really cool thing about books versus like movies or shows is that
They're far more open to interpretation.
yeah, and even though the author tries to guide you through, the path from one point to another, it's like they tell you enough that you get a good visual and a good grasp of like the situation and your surroundings, but also like we pick a book that none of us have read, which I'm sure there's one that exists, and we all read it, and we would have, since there's 6 of us in here, we'd have 6 different interpretations of like or visuals in our mind of what character A looks like, and what does their house look like, it's the author gives us some guidelines, and then we fill in the gaps, whereas movies have, obviously it's a visual media versus a read media, but it's like with movies and shows, they give you all the details. There's no real room for interpret, like oh well, what does Frodo look like? Boom, there he is, kind of thing. Like
They add 2 senses to the perception. Like you get to see it and hear it.
Yeah.
And in the book, you have to like do all that on your own.
Exactly. So even though
Yeah, but when
yes,
do we get to smell it?
when you buy a brand new book,
What you ask for.
yeah, I don't know if I want a 4D Lord of the Rings. I don't know.
Bunch of feet.
Yeah, but no, I think this chapter though, yes, developed some interesting dynamics and like obviously we saw more of the timeline of things. I thought that overall it was kind of just like, well, like we progressed some time, we experienced some things that we didn't see in the movie, which okay, and then obviously we have the further dynamics with the SBs, as Frodo refers to them as in one of the lines he has early in the chapter. But anyways, does anybody have any final comments about this week's chapter? Anything?
No, not me.
No, not offhand.
Cool. Well,
And now to bed.
pretty much, yeah. We'll discuss in the text chat about what we want to read for this coming week, because I know that this next chapter is super short. Like it's like less than 10 pages, a little over. It's like 11 pages. Whereas these last chapters have been like 20-ish a piece. So we'll discuss. Let me see. Actually, let me see what chapter 5 looks like. Oh, that's 7. So I skipped. Hold on.
Don't be skipping stuff.
I'm not skipping anything. It looks like, again, we can confirm. It looks like if we read 4 and 5, that'll get us roughly 20 pages, give or take a page or two. Without doing, it'll be 22 pages. So
That's not bad.
yeah, that's about what we've been reading. Because we're trying to gauge this, Axel, by like what we can cover in about an hour, which is about 20 pages. Because one week we did like a 30-page reading, and it was like an hour and a half plus. So we're trying to keep it to, give or take a few minutes, an hour. So, all right, guys. Well, I'll put that in the chat for everybody's awareness. And thank you guys for discussing everything. I always appreciate it, especially for my first time reader self. So have a great rest of your week.
Adios.
Night, everyone.
Good night,
All right, have a
everybody.
nice night, everyone.
Night. Alrighty, chat. I keep saying that like I keep doing that like I'm streaming live because it's just a force of habit. Anywho, so that was chapter 3 for us. And I think we're going to read chapter 4 and chapter 5 next because they're 2 shorter chapters. So we can make a little bit of chaptoral, that's probably not a real word, chaptoral progress. But thank you guys for sticking around for our discussion. I freaking love hearing about all these insight things that I just have no idea about because I haven't read the Silmarillion. I haven't read the other 2 books. Like, it is fascinating to me hearing about all this stuff. So I freaking love it. If you made it all the way to this point, thank you so much. I will be posting this. I should hopefully have it posted tomorrow morning, aka Tuesday the 16th. So if you made it this far, thank you. If you haven't already, please subscribe. Also swing by my stream sometime and say, hey, I'm coming over from YouTube. Same username is here. And yeah, we're trying to achieve those goals this year. So I appreciate everybody that subscribes and likes and comments and follows and all that jazz. So I will see you guys in stream later this week. And we will be back next week for our next chapters of book club. So thank you, everybody. Good night or good morning, whenever you're watching this. Bye.